The Porsche 964 is the company's internal name for the Porsche 911 manufactured and sold between 1989 and 1994. Designed by Benjamin Dimson in 1986, it featured significant styling revisions over previous 911 models, most prominently the more integrated bumpers. It was the first generation 911 to be offered with Porsche's optional Tiptronic automatic transmission and all-wheel drive as options. Name: Type 964 is Porsche's internal code name for the 911 Carrera 2 and 911 Carrera 4 models, which were badged simply as Carrera 2 and Carrera 4. 964 inches is used by automotive publications and enthusiasts to distinguish them from other generations of the Carrera. Carrera 2 and 4. The 964 was considered to be 85% new as compared to its predecessor, the Carrera 3.2. The first 964s available in 1989 were all-wheel drive equipped Carrera 4 models. Porsche added the rear-wheel drive Carrera 2 variant to the range in 1990. Both variants were available as a coupe, Targa or cabriolet. The 964 Carrera was the last generation sold with a traditional removable Targa roof. Later evolutions of the Targa, starting with the 993 generation, replaced that setup with a complex glass roof greenhouse system. A new naturally aspirated engine called the M64 was used for 964 models, with a flat 6 displacement of 3.6 liters. Porsche substantially revised the suspension, replacing the rear torsion bars with coil springs and shock absorbers. Power steering and ABS brakes were added to the 911 for the first time. Both were standard. The exterior bumpers and fog lamps became flush into the car, allowing for better aerodynamics. A new electric rear spoiler raised at speeds above 50 mph and lowered down flush with the rear engine lid at lower speeds or at rest. A revised interior featured standard dual airbags beginning in 1990 for all North American production cars. A new automatic climate control system provided superior heating and cooling. Revised instrumentation housed a large set of warning lights that were tied into the car's central warning system, alerting the driver to a possible problem or malfunction. Engine design: air oil cooled, horizontally opposed, dry sump lubrication, rear-mounted, engine displacement, 3,600 cc's, cylinders, 6, bore and stroke, 100 x 76.4 m, compression ratio, 11.301, fuel ignition, electronic fuel injection, DME controller, with twin spark with knock regulation, crankshaft, forged, 8 main bearings, block and heads, aluminum alloy, valve train, overhead cam, 1 per bank, double chain drive, power, 184 kW 250 picoseconds at 6,100 rpm, torque, 310 Nm/228 lb-ft at 4,800 rpm, engine speed limitation, 6,700 rpm, performance, top speed, 163 mph, 159 mph, 0-60 mph, 5.5 s, 6.2 s, 1/4 mile, 13.6 s, 14.0 s, 14.1 s. Coefficient of drag, 0.32, fuel consumption approximately 24 mpg, selected dimensions. Capacities, curb weight, 3,031 lb/1,375 kg. 3,100 lb/1,406 kg, 3,252 lb, wheelbase, 89.4 in, overall length, 168.3 in, width 65.0 in, height, 52.0 in, front track, 54.3 in, rear track, 54.1 in, ground clearance, 4.7 in, fuel tank, 20.3 gallons. Engine oil, 11.5 L, oil change volume, 9 L, transmission fluid, 3.6 L, 9 L. 3.8 L, Carrera RS variants. In 1992, Porsche produced a super lightweight, rear-wheel drive-only version of the 964 dubbed Carrera RS for the European market. It was based on Porsche's 911 Carrera Cup race car and harked back to the 2.7 and 3.0 RS and RS models. It featured a revised version of the standard engine, titled M64/03 internally, with an increased power output of 260 bhp in lightweight flywheel coupled to the G50/10 transmission with closer ratios, asymmetrical limited slip differential and steel synchromesh. A track-oriented suspension system with 40 ohm lower ride height, stiffer springs, shocks and adjustable stabilizer bars without power steering. A stripped-out interior devoid of power windows or seats, rear seats, air conditioning, cruise control, sound deadening or a stereo system and new racing bucket front seats were part of the package. The trunk hood was made of aluminum, the chassis was seam welded and sound deadening was deleted. Wheels were made of magnesium and the glass was thinner in the doors and rear window. The Carrera RS is approximately 345 pounds lighter than the US version Carrera 2 model. Also available were a heavier touring variant, undercarriage protection and power windows, and a Newton GT racing variant with a stripped, blank metal interior and a roll cage. They also came with optional lights on the visors. A later ultra-limited production version, the Carrera 3.8 RS featuring the turbo body and a 300 bhp 3.8-litre version of the M64 motor was sold briefly in Europe. This engine was bored out by 2M for a total of 3,746 cc, and was also available in a more powerful competition version called the 3.8 RSR. The Carrera RS was not sold in the USA because Porsche Cars North America felt the car's aggressive tuning was not suited to the American market. In 1992, 45 USA legal cars that were very similar to the Carrera RS were imported to the USA for a proposed Porsche Carrera Cup Racing Series. This Carrera Cup Series was to function as a support race for the American Kart Racing Series just as European Carrera Cup has supported Formula One. These 45 cars were identical to a Carrera RS other than having airbags, alarms system, American lighting, American bumpers, aluminum wheels, and standard seats. The cars otherwise had the lightweight seam-welded chassis, lightweight interior trim, aluminum hood, lightweight door glass, suspension, brakes, G50/10 transmission and M64/03 engine etc. of the Carrera RS. These cars were approximately 200 pounds lighter than a normal USA Carrera 2 model. The plan was for Andial, the then equivalent of what is now Porsche Motorsport USA, to convert these cars to full racing specification. However, due to lack of sponsor support for the Carrera Cup Series, it was cancelled before it began. The 45 cars imported to the USA for this series were then sold, quietly without any advertising so as not to compete with the new RS America, through normal dealer channels. These cars were supplied with a dash plaque which indicated that they were the Carrera Cup USA edition. In order to please devoted American 911 enthusiasts who wanted an RS model, Porsche produced the RS America. The RS America was produced as a model year 1993 and 1994 car based on the USA Carrera 2. The cars were offered in standard colors red, black and white and optional colors midnight blue metallic and polar silver. Several paint-to-order cars were manufactured in speed yellow. The RS America featured a distinctive whale tail spoiler, a partially stripped interior with flat door panels and carpeting along with a luggage shelf replacing the rear seats. Cloth-covered sports seats, 17-inch wheels and MO30 sports suspension were fitted as standard. The logo RS America was written on the deck lid along with an RS logo in front of the rear wheels. Deleted to save weight were power steering, cruise control, powered side mirrors, air conditioning, sunroof and radio, although the air conditioning, sunroof and radio as well as a limited slip differential could be ordered as options. The RS America was listed by Porsche as weighing 2,954 pounds, 77 pounds lighter than the weight listed for a stock Carrera 2. The standard USA Carrera 2 brakes, engine and gearbox were used. Engine design, air-cooled or oil-cooled, horizontally opposed, dry sump lubrication, rear-mounted engine, displacement, 3,600 cc's, Cylinders, 6, bore and stroke, 3.94 x 3.01 in, compression ratio, 11.301, fuel ignition, electronic fuel injection, DME controller, twin spark with knock regulation, crankshaft, forged, 8 main bearings, block and heads, aluminum alloy, valve train, overhead cam, 1 per bank, double chain drive, power, 191 a kilowatt per 260 HP at 6,100 rpm, torque, 312 Nm/230 lb/ft at 4,800 rpm, 964 cup, based on the Porsche 964 was the 1990 racing version for the new Porsche Carrera Cup. In addition to an increase in output by 11 kilowatts to 195 kilowatts, the 964 Cup had a welded roll cage, a modified chassis setup, and the ground clearance was 55 mm lower than on the standard version. To reduce weight, the interior and the soundproofing material was removed. The gear ratios were modified and it had non-power steering. The vehicle did have a catalytic converter and an anti-lock braking system. In 1992, the 964 Cup had a major revision. The vehicle now had the body from the 964 RS and the engine now produced 202 kilowatts. Another major change was that the ABS could be switched off in the event of emergency braking or whilst the car was going backwards. The vehicle now had 18-inch magnesium rims, which replaced the aluminium rims. The car was lowered by a further 20 mm. Technical data, turbo. Porsche introduced the 964 Turbo model in March 1990 as the successor to the 930. Unfortunately, they hadn't had the necessary time to develop a turbocharged version of the 3.6-litre M64 engine, and chose to reuse the 3.3-litre engine from the 930, with several minor revisions that made the engine smoother, less prone to turbo lag and more powerful, with a total output of 320 PS at 5750 rpms. A total of 3,660 of the 964 turbos were built. In 1992 the 3.3-litre Turbo S was introduced. With a power of 381 PS and with a lightweight interior and limited creature comforts, the Turbo S was one of the fastest cars on the road. With lowered suspension, a front strut brace and manual steering, the Turbo S was geared to performance. About 80 cars were produced during the only year of production. Porsche released the 964 Turbo 3.6 in January 1993, now featuring a turbocharged version of the 3.6-litre M64 engine and producing 360 PS at 5,500 rpms. The 3.6-litre powered turbo was produced only for model year 1993/1994, with fewer than 1,500 of them produced in total, making it one of the rarest and most sought-after Porsches produced since the 959. At the end of 964 production in 1994, the Porsche factory had some 90 turbo chassis left. These were all transferred to Porsche exclusive and built as the very special Turbo 3.6S. The Turbo 3.6S was available either with the traditional 964 Turbo 3.6 body, or with the exclusive slant nose option. Option X83, X84 and X85, the Turbo S slant nose, was available in the US as a $60,179 USD option on top of the base price $99,000 USD Turbo 3.6. The slant nose option was available when ordering the no-charge 36S option 1994 Turbo S model. In addition to the slant nose fenders, it also included the X88 option or the Turbo S motor, the X92 exclusive front spoiler, X93 exclusive rear spoiler and X99 exclusive rear fender vents. The slant nose option was designed around the Model 968 front end for the RO and USA versions and the 930 style Turbo S front end for Japan. 39 models were made for US markets, 27 for the rest of the world, and 10 for Japan, all in Polar silver. Specifications. Turbo S LMGT. In 1993, Porsche developed a highly tuned 964 Turbo S prototype for use in international motorsport. The car, known as the Turbo S Le Mans GT, was based on the standard road legal Turbo S, but stripped down and modified for circuit use. A deep chin spoiler was added to the front, while two air inlets were added just above the rear wheel fenders. An adjustable racing rear wing was added on top of the standard Turbo's wing. Wider fenders were used to house 12-inch wide racing slicks. The interior was completely stripped, a roll cage added, and the windows replaced with plastic. The engine used was not the standard road car unit, but a smaller twin-turbocharged 3.2-litre unit which produced 475 horsepower. The Turbo S LMGT made its debut at the 1993 12 Hours of Sebring, where the car finished 7th overall and first in its class with the Brumos Porsche racing team. From there, the car was entered in the 24 Hours of Le Mans, running under the guise of the Porsche factory team. The car would however fail to finish after the engine was damaged early in the race. For 1994, the Turbo S LMGT would be moved to the hands of L'Arbre Compa Copyright-ition, where a new 3.6-litre engine based on the 993 unit would be used in place of the 3.2-litre engine. The team opened the year with a second-place finish at the 24 Hours of Daytona, before moving on to select rounds of the BPA Global GT Series. The car would win all 4 races in which it competed, including the 1,000-kilometre Suzuka. The Turbo S LMGT would make a few select appearances in 1995 with Obermeier Racing before being retired. The development work from the Turbo S LMGT helped Porsche in creating the 993 Generation 911 GT2 in 1995, which would be mass-produced and sold to racing customers. Some teams, unable to buy new 911 GT2s, developed their own twin-turbo racing versions of the 964 Turbo to mimic the Turbo S LMGT, but lacked the success of the factory project. 964 Speedster. There were 2 very distinct incarnations of the 964 Speedster. The first was the 1989 model year Speedster. Shown at the 1988 Frankfurt Auto Show beside the upcoming Carrera 4, the 1989 Speedster actually shared more in common with the 930 Turbo than with the upcoming 964 Generation 911s, causing it to be looked upon, in retrospect, as a much inferior driver's car to the later 1994 Speedster. More than 3/4 of the 800 built had the Turbo look wide-body option. The 1994 Porsche 911 Speedster was available either in standard or lightweight trim called a Euro OE Club Sport. Unlike the 1989 model, the 1994 Speedster was based on the new Carrera 2 platform and was not initially available with the Turbo look wide-body style. The 1994 Speedster was designed to be a more focused driver's car, and served as a hybrid between a 964 Carrera 2 Cabriolet and a 964 RS. While it featured a softer suspension setup than the 964 RS, it offered almost none of the comforts of a normal 964 Carrera 2 Cabriolet, though power windows were standard and it was available with air conditioning and a stereo. Porsche planned to build 3,000 examples of the 1994 Speedsters in 1992, but only 936 examples were built and sold during the 2 years of production. Once again, the United States was the most important market with 427 Speedsters heading stateside. Right-hand drive versions were exceptionally rare this time, with only 14 cars having the steering wheel on the proper Euro unregistered trademark side compared to 139 examples in right-hand drive of the pre-964 911 Speedster. In addition, 20 special examples were finished at Porsche Exclusives Workshop at Work 1 with the optional Euro OE Turbo look Euro wide bodies. For both incarnations of the 964 Speedster, the manually folding pram-like hood was a basic contraption that required practice to erect quickly. The last 964 Speedster produced was a RHD example finished in slate grey. Known as the Sonderrange Special Wishes Speedster Leached Bay for its extensive use of lightweight materials and its Porsche exclusive Work 1 provenance, it is widely regarded as the most collectible version of all. Since 2008, the Sonderrange Speedster has resided in Hong Kong with its current custodian, Mr. Kevin Young, a Hong Kong businessman and philanthropist. Mr. Young appeared with the Sonderrange Speedster in an episode YouTube show Digital Rev TV where Kai W., the presenter of DRTV, drove his car in a photo shoot. The Sonderrange Speedster was specified in the same shade of slate grey as the 1970 911S used by Steve McQueen in the movie Le Mans, and was the only 964 Speedster painted in this color. Its 964 RS-style seam-welded chassis was fitted with a similar suspension to the 964 RS. It received the hydraulic brake boost system from the RS and Turbo 3.6 along with the same brakes as the Turbo 3.6. With 4-pot Brembo calipers and cross-drilled and vented 322 mm, 32 mm wide discs at the front and 299 mm, 24 mm at the rear. The car sat on 17-inch 7x17 and 8x17 aluminum cup wheels fitted with 205/50 and 255/40 tires. Where a standard Speedster made do with the standard 247 bhp 964 engine, the Sonderrange Speedster had 260 bhp. This was down to a blueprinted engine with remapped ignition and DME chipset with aggressive timing advance characteristics. To achieve further weight savings it borrowed the alloy doors and bonnet from the 964 RS while replacing the standard steel standard fenders with hand-fabricated fenders made from super-strong thin-gauge steel. In the end, the Sonderrange Speedster took almost 9 months to complete and was finally delivered to its original owner in London in September 1994 but it was first registered in January 1999 by its second owner in Edinburgh, Scotland. In 2010, Spark Models produced a series of 1/43 scale models to salute this car. America Roadster, a turbo-bodied cabriolet version was released in 1992. This had the standard electric spoiler and turbo guards. Mechanically, it was the same as the standard model, apart from 17 inches cup wheels and the brakes and suspension, which were turbo specification. Only 250 of this variant were produced, in total, during the 1992 and 1993 model years. Porsche 969. The Porsche 969 was a concept based on the 964 platform intended to succeed the 930 Turbo. The car was conceived in 1982 as a twin-turbo 911 with four-wheel drive and a PDK gearbox. The project received the in-house code 965 and was developed along with the new, 964 generation of the 911. However, the intended engine could not be used due to cooling problems. Various alternatives were considered during the car's development, including a water-cooled version of the traditional flat 6 and 2 variants of Porsche's Indy V8 engine. While the 969 shared the 911's roofline, its slanted headlights and wide tail were carryovers from the 959. Ultimately, the project was scrapped. Ongoing engine development issues and a projected price of over $200,000 in the wake of a recession kept it from succeeding the 911 Turbo. 15 of the 16 prototypes were destroyed in December 1988 and a sole remaining prototype has not been seen since. Production figures, references. Ludvigsen, Carl. Porsche. Excellence was expected 3. Cambridge, Massachusetts Bentley Publishers. ISBN A0-8376-0235-1. External links, Porsche, 1989 Porsche 911 Carrera Coupe Copyright, Cabriolet, Targa, Speedster, and 4 Coupe Copyright, Porsche, 1989 Porsche Turbo 911 Coupe Copyright, Cabriolet, and Targa.